developing skills is always good, but also recognizing what is and is not the right fit is really, really important. It's always easier to find out what you don't want to do. If you, get that feeling, then, figure out something different. Like, don't just stay stuck in that cycle. You'll be very unhappy.
So, Alyssa Devine, welcome to the You Are a Lawyer podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I was so excited to prepare, as I was getting ready for the recording, because you went to Indiana University, McKinley School of Law. I live in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yay, Midwest.
Okay. Yep.
So let's talk about your background. What led you to law school?
So I kind of was one of those college nomads. I thought I wanted to be, this and that, and kind of switched a couple of times. I originally went to college thinking I wanted to be a veterinarian, actually. Loved animals. But then I got into organic chemistry and those types of things. And I was like, I'm not so sure this is for me. Let's find something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually got into criminal justice. So yeah, it's quite a journey. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a federal prosecutor. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to law school and be a federal prosecutor. And then the more I learned about that role, I didn't think that was a good fit either, mostly because of the emotional toll that kind of job takes.
Okay.
And I didn't see myself doing that long term. So I was like, okay, let's find something different. So, in law school, they have, a ton of different events and lectures. So I, attended a bunch of those, and I got stuck on intellectual property. I kept coming back to that. And then I also, by talking to other lawyers and doing informational interviews, I recognized that business and intellectual property are very, very closely intertwined. So in order to be a really good intellectual property lawyer, I needed to understand business and vice versa.
Yeah.
So my law school had a joint JD MBA program, and I was like, okay, this is going to be really hard, but I think it's going to be worth it. So I sort of just, jumped in that process, and it was really hard, and it's certainly not for everybody, but I made it work. I made it work, and I do not regret my path. I think right now I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So do you think earning your MBA was so difficult while you were in law school, or do you think because the subject matter is just so different, it was difficult?
I think the time management was the most difficult part. It was a little kind of disorienting, especially in the beginning, because they're very, very different environments.
Mm-hmm.
Law school traditionally is a lot more competitive and more individual type of work, whereas the MBA program is very, very collaborative. It's all about the teamwork. It's all about team projects. There are a lot more speaking types of tasks that you have to do.
Okay.
So they were, I don't want to say they're opposite of each other, but they were very, very different. And I think that kind of doing both at the same time allowed me to recognize a lot of different things, such as the almost constant clash between, the best business decision versus the best legal decision.
Yeah.
So I recognize that was a kind of warring conflict that is, comes up frequently. So, and I try to help my clients with those types of things. So, I can, educate them about, the law, the business, and, it's ultimately up to them to make that decision. But my job is to make sure they make that informed decision.
Yeah. In fact, I love that you brought that up, that it's not so much a conflict, but just the different approaches to how they learn, how they're studying, how you present in class. And then also a lot of your clients are business owners, influencers, musicians. And so with you having that practical experience from being in an MBA program, learning how businesses function, right? I think that it was perfect for you to end up specializing in helping businesses and companies and influencers and things like that. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're in a really interesting time with technology.
yeah.
And the law is always trying to catch up with technology. So we're trying to apply 20, 30 year old laws to like AI and all this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
we're it's a very interesting time for lawyers. It's a very
Yeah.
interesting time.
Okay. Off the record, I
Okay.
actually have a part-time job as an assistant at Abercrombie and Fitch in their marketing brand
Okay.
department. And it's so amazing because they're like, even things they did 5 years ago with paid media is not the same now. And so I couldn't even,
Yeah.
as a lawyer, I watch and I'm like, oh, I'm sure the laws are, if not irrelevant, do not remotely apply, right? Because this
Right.
wasn't around. And then maybe the cases that
Yeah.
you have are all related to Facebook, which is not TikTok, right? It's very
Mm-hmm.
different. So,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
No, it's fine. Um, so, well, when I'm talking about like the conflicts between like business and legal, a really good example actually is Barbie.
Mm,
Everybody's talking about Barbie. You see it everywhere. I see it everywhere.
yeah.
And, I actually see a lot of infringement, what I would consider infringement from, an intellectual property standpoint.
Yeah.
But it's not in Mattel's best interest to go after these infringers because that would deter them from seeing the movie, which is what they ultimately want. They want
Yeah.
profit. They want people to go see the movie. So they're not going to go after infringers, which would be the best legal decision.
Yeah.
But the best business decision is to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing I try to identify and just kind of educate people about.
Yeah, but it's so beneficial that you can see both sides, right? Because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
being a lawyer, I knew, okay, I'm going to start this podcast. I have to have it in the name of an LLC. I just have to do those things to protect myself. That's just how I think. But
Mm-hmm.
running a business, right? The first time somebody was like, "Can
Yeah.
I pay you to run ads?" I don't know. I was like, I can write the contract for that, but what would I do as a business person, right? They are
Right.
very different because
Mm-hmm.
within the law you can be creative in
Yeah.
certain aspects, but as a business owner, it's a different kind of creativity, and they're both
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
difficult, but they both can be. And so, anyway, the
Yeah.
fact that you have mastered both of them, at least and have degrees in them, kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been challenging, but it is very beneficial to have that sort of multiple perspectives. And I also credit a lot of the diversity of experiences that I had in law school. I did over like 10 internships,
Mm,
and during law school, and worked for 4 judges, the state and federal level. Worked for 2 in-house counsel departments, worked for, law firms, worked for a couple of professors. Like, I mean, if I could fit it in my schedule, I did it.
yeah.
I did it. So I credit a lot of, my skills to that as well.
So, were all of these internships for you to try to see, or would I be interested in that, or were you just, you know, kind of trying to get experience with everything?
I think initially it was just trying to get a lot of experience, but as I kind of kept coming back to this, this attraction, this passion for intellectual property and its connection to business. I sort of like, I think maybe second, third, and also maybe fourth year a little bit. It was more okay. Like what opportunities are there for skills that I want to develop, and can I make that work with my schedule? That's kind of what it was. So the two kind of main things I kept hearing from attorneys and even some professors and stuff is that new attorneys, associates, first year associates, they don't know how to write and they don't know anything about business. So I was like, okay, so how do I remedy this? I'm going to go work for judges, the best legal writers that there are. So that was, kind of part one. Part two, you know what? They have this MBA program. I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to I'm going to, invest in myself and just go for that. And, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, how pioneering of you, right? You weren't like, well, they said I'm just like everybody. Okay, I'll keep it like that. You were like, no, how can I tackle that so I can be the exception? That's awesome.
Yeah. I kept hearing those themes and yeah, tried to just kind of look for and recognize, those opportunities that would help me get to where I wanted to be.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the reason why I keep asking these questions and headed down this path is because you own a business, right? You own Purple Fox
Mm-hmm.
Legal.
Yeah.
Of course, I got to ask, where did the name come from? And the second question is, did you ever anticipate being a business owner before law school, right? Like when you were younger or even in high school, did you ever have dreams of owning your own business?
Okay. A couple loaded questions there, but that's okay. No. So the name, it was really important for me to come up with something that was very distinctive. I created this business in September of 2021, like right in the middle of the pandemic. Like everything was online. There were so many restrictions for any kind of, in-person event or interactions. So it had to be distinctive online. And I was very adamant about not using my last name because that's what all the other lawyers did, or most of them at least. So I wanted something that was a strong trademark, that was easy to pronounce, had an available domain name, social media handles, all those sorts of things. But kind of, did a lot of research, but ultimately came up with Purple Fox Legal. So purple represents creativity and wisdom. And then Fox represents cleverness and also getting out of tricky situations, which is what a lawyer helps out with sometimes. And I, kind of worked with a branding agency and to come up with sort of a more abstract logo, something very modern. Because I think, being modern and innovative and, you know, testing things with AI, like how can we use AI to help our business? Those kind of things are really, really important as an entrepreneur, which kind of conflicts with my legal side a little bit because my legal side's kind of arguing, oh no, don't do this, but that's part of the journey. That's part of the journey, and that's part of what makes this really rewarding. But to answer your second question, did I ever want to be a business owner? I would say that would be a strong no. I did not ever want to be a business owner when I was younger. My introduction to entrepreneurship was actually through my grandfather. So he's a farmer. He has been his whole life, and I watched him really struggle. I mean that's a really hard profession in general, and like not even talking about like the physical risks that there are. Like there are a lot of business risks too. So, there's the weather. You can't control the weather. You cannot mitigate that risk. So, but just recognizing that is important. But he could spray pesticide so that, insects and other critters, didn't literally eat up his profits. So, trying to figure out what risk you can mitigate is important as well. But I saw that struggle and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. But then later on, as I grow up, and graduate law school, that's exactly what I do. So it's kind of ironic.
It is ironic, but also it probably planted a seed where you were like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you didn't use the phrase mitigate the risk, you probably were like, you're watching, you're observing, and you're like, but who would handle that? Right? And so now you become a lawyer and you have, yes, do this, no, don't do that. It's pretty black and white until you actually start practicing and you find out it's all gray. And then you're also studying to own a business or get your MBA and you're like, oh, everything is technicolor. So you have all the aspects going.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So something like that.
So I've never heard anyone say, I wanted a really strong trademark. The website was available. I love that. I was expecting, my favorite color is purple when I was growing up. I have a dog named Fox. Nope. So I love that. Nope. You were like,
none of that. Okay. It was all about the trademark. I wanted to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah.
I have a trademark registration. Like I'm doing what I tell other people.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, adds some credibility. So,
It does. And it is, I mean, it's fun to say Purple Fox Legal. And, who's your lawyer?
mhm,
Purple
yeah.
Fox, Purple Fox. That's hilarious. So, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I want to jump back into where you're from. And no, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. The reason why I was asking about, you going to law school and all that is because you actually live in Nashville right now. What took you to Tennessee?
So I would say I chose Nashville more than I chose Tennessee.
Okay.
But yeah, I just really was passionate about intellectual property, and I wanted to be, you know, in a, you know, medium or larger size city, but I also wanted there to have some sort of, you know, creative community or you know, a part of the entertainment industry. So, you know, I was looking at like New York and LA as well, but I was like, you know what? Like, I think Nashville makes sense. And, you know, unfortunately, there were some people in my life that strongly discouraged me from taking the Tennessee bar. And that was, you know, difficult because, you know, these were people I trusted, but I just kind of felt like I had worked too hard to settle and I should just kind of put, you know, go all in and just pursue this path. And I did. And it's worked out pretty well so far. So I'm glad that I did that.
Are you from Indiana? Is that how you
I
ended
am
up in
from
law school?
Yes, I am from Indiana.
Okay.
And yes, chose Indiana University. And I like Indianapolis. It's great. They're just, you know, I just didn't graduate in a great year. You know, May 2020, pretty much the worst year to graduate ever. So but that allowed me to, you know, to go down this path and to go to Nashville. And since then, I have, you know, become a part of this really amazing female entrepreneurship community. You know, very authentic, very genuine, and it's I've not experienced or heard of anything else like it. And I've actually talked to people, you know, who, you know, visit Nashville and they kind of say the same thing, like, oh, this is like really unique. And I'm just really grateful to be, you know, be a part of that community and, you know, where women really support each other. Cause like, you know, we traditionally you always had, you know, the men making business deals on the golf course or kind of wherever those traditional things. But you know, I think during the pandemic, a lot of women were asking, "Well, where's our space? Where's our space?"
What about
So,
me? Yeah.
yeah. So in Nashville, that's been addressed a little bit, and we have spaces now. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So let's talk about a little bit deeper into owning a business, right? You graduate May 2020,
Mm-hmm.
middle of a worldwide shutdown, if not pandemic, definitely here in the US. Everything is
Right.
closed. Um, you're looking for a job. You have an MBA, you have a JD.
Yes. Yes.
Where did you start working, or did you directly open your own firm and hang out your own shingle? What happened?
Yeah. So that was, yeah, very, very tough for me. I was fortunate enough to continue a part-time job that I started during my last year of school up until the time that I had to start studying for the bar. So I was a little bit lucky in that regard, but you know, they weren't in a position to offer me a full-time job because, you know, their business was suffering too. The pandemic made it, you know, made most, if not all businesses, you know, suffer in some way. So I, you know, I took the bar and then, I actually worked part-time at Macy's until I got my bar results. And then, I was like, okay, like, what do I do now? Like, what should I do? And I'm like, I kind of asked myself that a couple of times and I came to the conclusion that I should, you know, work as an independent contractor, like in addition to like searching for a full-time job. And, you know, by about August, September of 2021, I was just kind of at the point, like, I'm not really doing what I want. Like, I need to do something different. And yeah, I kind of did the all in, you know, jumping all in approach again. But it wasn't a, you know, quick decision. Like I'd been thinking that this was going to be a possibility since February of 2020. And I had been researching, reading, and watching all kinds of videos about business, not just about running a law firm, but just running a business. And so I did a lot of planning. I didn't just like decide that. And I think planning is very, very important, both before and while somebody's managing a business. It can help prevent a lot of headaches in the future. For like trademarks, for example. So a lot of people will start a business, but they don't do any sort of trademark clearance search, or alternatively, they'll search for the exact same name in the USPTO database and think, oh, nobody's using the exact same name, so it's okay to use. Well, that's not really how trademark law works. So, there are people who sometimes infringe on other people's rights, and then they have to rebrand. Well, then they've thrown away all of that goodwill and that brand equity that they've invested in for however many years, and they have to start all over. But that was preventable. That was preventable with a trademark clearance search, a comprehensive trademark clearance search.
Yeah, and again, in my mind, I'm seeing that conflict of business and legal, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do it. Let's go. I'm the dreamer business owner. And the lawyer's like, but have you checked the receipts? You need to look for all of these things. Because even with this podcast, I started it while I was working at a law firm, and it was in the IP department. And I'm like, okay. So I grabbed all the social media names one year, and then I was still dragging my feet because I was just scared to start. And so then the next year I'm like, well, I want to start using it, right? Because your trademark is the government recognizing your use. So let me start using it. And then I finally launched like April 2020. So yeah, I know I was at home recording. I was like, this is fun. And then everything shut down and everybody was obsessed with Zoom anyway. And I was like, well, come on over here. Record with me. Yeah. So it was a good time for
make podcasting. Lemonade out of lemons.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. Didn't know lemons or lemonade was coming, but we made it work.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So never expected to own a business, and now you're a business owner. Went to law school because you thought you were went to school to become a veterinarian and then switched that. Right. Yes. But what I'm finding in your journey is that you're incredibly successful. You're working with these business owners and all these creatives. And you created this whole life that you didn't even anticipate, right? So I think that is pretty cool. So Alyssa, do you have any kind of advice for law students or young lawyers, 5 years practicing or less, about what they can do with their law degree?
I think my advice might be a little different for, law students versus lawyers. Okay. So for law students, and I've had law students come to me who are interested in practicing intellectual property entertainment law. And, I unfortunately hear that, when they contact other attorneys, that the other attorneys don't get back to them. So I would say to, try not to, take that personally, mm-hmm. but also don't give up, because maintaining relationships and just, meeting new people is really, really important. I did not recognize the importance of relationships until probably my second year of law school. And then I networked like crazy.
Okay.
which is good. But I honestly wish I'd started much, much earlier. And I would also say maybe I wouldn't even, limit it to the legal field necessarily. Because, if you're kind of wanting to do the traditional lawyer, path, you're going to be expected to bring in clients. So you're going to have to know, business owners or other people as well. So just kind of develop a wide network of people, but also, kind of do it intentionally. Don't just meet people for the sake of meeting people.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, my main advice for law students. For lawyers, I would say just keep learning. Don't get discouraged. And, we're in a different environment. We do not have the society where you go to work for a company for 30, 40 years. We can change jobs. That's acceptable. That's expected. And that's okay. So I think, developing skills is always good, but also recognizing what is and is not the right fit is really, really important. Find out, it's always easier to find out what you don't want to do, but if you, get that feeling, then, figure out something different. Like, don't
Yeah.
just stay stuck in that cycle. You'll be very unhappy.
Yeah, you will. And what I keep hearing is kind of like an undercurrent is that like everything is figure outable. You
With
made it through law
time.
school. You can figure out what to do, right? And so if you're a young lawyer practicing and you're like, this isn't really me. Maybe you should run your own business. Maybe you should switch to a
Mm-hmm.
different firm, right? And so like what you're
Yeah.
saying is you're not stuck. Even if you're a law student,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Yeah.
interested, okay, let me talk to some lawyers, but also let me talk to business owners. Let me
Mm-hmm.
just talk to people because
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, things are a lot different now. And I think the shift is so, when people talk about, oh, I had a job for 35, 50 years, yes, that sounds absolutely wild. But also,
Yeah.
what job could you have that wouldn't change 35, 50 times in that amount of
Mm-hmm.
time that you were there, right? Like, even
Mm-hmm.
just the world is
Yeah.
faster now than it used to be. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just,
Absolutely. I agree.
yeah, I love that. And I mean, you've been out of school 3 years and you own your own firm
Yeah.
and you're rocking it.
It
So, like,
doesn't seems like a lifetime ago, to be honest.
but I love that because everyone should be inspired that like they can do it, they can change their mind, they can take a risk, And if you don't know something, research it, look it up. That's what Alyssa did. She was like, well, let me go get an MBA. Let me read about this. Let me do that. Let me do that. Right. So if you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, all the places, thank you so much. And I want to remind you that this podcast is available on YouTube. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hello. And if you're not watching, there are new episodes every single week on You Are a Lawyer on YouTube. Okay? So back into the interview with Alyssa Devine. Well, Alyssa, I really hope the audience is really inspired by that. We've learned so much about you and Purple Fox. You heard it here first. Now we know the origin story. Okay?
Yes.
So thank you so much for talking to everyone, and you have a great day.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to hearing more episodes in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.